everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm KROOF, and today we're going to dive into yet another Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons build video. And today, as you might have guessed, we are going to be talking about the Bladesworn. The Bladesworn is the warrior elite spec and is quite unique for the sake that it takes away a weapon swap, but instead grants it a totally unique weapon to this elite spec, the gun saber. Now this weapon is really cool. A lot of ammunition abilities, high mobility, a mixture of melee and ranged, and overall gives the Bladesworn a very unique seat at the table. So for this build video, I'm going to be talking about what I've really been running and how I've been enjoying it, and explain maybe some strengths / weaknesses in open world versus structured PvE endgame content. So let's begin with some gear. I've been taking mostly Marauders, Power, Precision, Vitality, and Ferocity. And as for the rune, I've decided to take Rune of the Scholar, increase my power damage even more, and increase the damage my critical strikes are doing. I also gain plus 5% additional increased strike damage while I'm above 90% health. For this build, I've really stuck with Axe Pistol. I am utilizing the pistol, which is the new weapon for the elite spec. Did get an offhand, this being the pistol. So I'm running with Axe and offhand pistol. For the sigil, I've for now taken Sigil of Vision. You could do a couple other things, and as for my sigil, I have yet to actually put one on my pistol. As for my accessories, I have Power, Precision, Vitality, and Ferocity. Power, Precision, Vitality, Ferocity, Power, Precision, Vitality, Ferocity. Now for my build. This build is very much power focused and not much else. So for the sake of brevity, let's talk discipline. I'm taking Warrior Sprint, Brawler's Recovery. Now this is slightly more based on survival. You remove a condition when you swap a weapon. I have to get better at swapping weapons, but it's there. If you don't want to take this, I highly recommend Destruction of the Empowered, or if you happen to be taking banners in a group scenario, double standards can work well. And then finally for the Grandmaster, Burst Mastery. This is very important for your dragon triggers, which are your burst skills. Next, for strength, I've decided to take Peak Performance. Peak Performance, I think, is a go-to for many warrior builds because they utilize physical skills, which is a type of utility skill, and it grants you plus 10% increased damage. Next, I've decided to take Great Fortitude. Gain Vitality and Ferocity based on a percentage of your power. With so much power, I am gaining a little bit extra health, and additionally, Ferocity. For the Grandmaster, I'm taking Berserker's Power. Gain increased strike damage when you use a burst skill. This damage increase is based on your adrenaline that you spend. Because this is Bladesworn, this is actually a matter of charges and not just adrenaline bars that cap out at 3. And then finally, we have Bladesworn, Concentrate and Execute. I've decided to run with Unseen Sword for now. I have been pushing myself to get better at weapon swapping, and with this trait, it also incentivizes that. Swapping weapons strikes all nearby foes. This is pretty decent damage in open world PvE, and it also gives you increased positive flow on a 4-second cooldown. I sometimes take Swift as the Wind because you have so many movement skills. It's a great way to get swiftness and positive flow out in the open world. Also, if you take Swift as the Wind, I highly recommend taking Brave Stride, because then you also gain stability, which is nice probably for World versus World, and maybe even PvP. With the Master, I'm taking Fierce as Fire. Gain increased strike damage for each round of ammunition spent. This is plus 1% damage, it stacks up to 10, so you can get a total of 10% increased damage. If you need more survivability, Unshakable Mountain is not a bad trait to take. Using the final round of an ammo on an ammunition skill grants you Barrier. And finally, for the Grandmaster, I'm taking Unyielding Dragon. Dragon Slash becomes unblockable, ignores blindness, and stuns foes on hit. You also gain might whenever you convert flow into charges. It's a great self-might generator out in the open world, but also it gives you pretty much a guaranteed strike on your burst attacks. If you happen to be in a situation where you need to move many more times and much more frequently, Daring Dragon is not a bad trait to take. Dragon Slash has a lower maximum charge level, but re-enters Dragon Trigger if you can pay the flow cost. The cooldown on Dragon Scale Defense is reset when entering or re-entering Dragon Trigger. You can use them more often, and you also gain stability. It's a great way if you happen to be moving quite a lot. You can get a faster maximum flow for that level, and just overall help you out. Immortal Dragon isn't too bad to take either. I really haven't had a reason to take it quite yet. But if you happen to be struggling or you're taking a lot of damage and soloing content, Immortal Dragon wouldn't be a bad option either. As for my utilities, I've decided to take Combat Stimulant to gain those boons, Quickness, Fury, and Vigor if I double cast it, which also helps because I'm taking Tactical Reload, so I can actually get a third charge out of this if I have already used one. But we'll get to that here in a moment. I've decided to take Bull's Charge to gain use out of peak performance, and also for armaments, Flow Stabilizer, you gain Fury, and it's a great way to passively generate that flow. I have been working with Dragon Spike Mine as a stun break. Do I absolutely adore it? Not necessarily. It could be something more interesting, or, spend a line of Dragon Spike Mines. It only plants one, and it's a very small radius, and even in open world, sometimes enemies don't run over it, so it's not my favorite. If anything, if this was a 15-second cooldown where you had a stun break on a 15 or maybe 20-second cooldown, that would be something worth taking. Other than this, I would probably recommend taking Stomp. It's a stun break, it does damage, you gain stability, and it's a really great CC skill. If you don't really want to stomp multiple enemies, of course you can take Kick, Tactical Reload. Reload ammo on all of your profession skills by 1. This is a really strong skill. It seems very minimal, but I like that because it's utility based. It's a very utility based elite skill. You have a lot of ammo skills. On the F1, let's go into the gun saber. Let's show it off a little bit. All of your abilities are pretty much ammunitions. Also with armaments, many of them are ammo skills. And just fight a little bit more. Bull's Charge is a great way to also knock down a target to get a little extra damage on them. One thing about the gun saber is that the attacks, sometimes I have heard from others, they feel maybe a little bit weak. The big hitters are usually your Blooming Fire, and from range, Artillery Slash is nothing to scoff at. So there seems to be a little bit of a graphical bug here, but we can actually double tap this to gain extra range damage. Oh wait, it has 3 ammunition. The 4th ability is a melee strike and a ranged damage. The melee strike honestly could hit a little stronger if I'm being fully transparent, but it's better than nothing. Oh gosh, you teleported. You didn't even land over my mine. That's what I'm saying. I wish there was maybe more to it because it is such a small mine. I'm going to double cast this to gain some boons, Quickness, Fury, and Vigor. And we're going to strike, and boom, done. Let's go into F2. So that's my first ability. That's the big hitter. But if you need to boost and go towards a target, you can use your second skill. I don't want to do that right now because I'm going to go off the edge. But if you need to do a projectile-based attack, you can use your third ability, like this. Also, Interrupt is good with Unchained? What is this called? Unyielding Dragon. I was like, Unchained? Undaring? I'm gonna double tap this again. The one thing to note about this heal is that if you double tap it, your healing will be prolonged in terms of its delivery. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. If I position myself better, we can get into our stance, and then I will use my second skill to actually gain some distance. Not too shabby. Even this really cool pose at the end. And we're gonna start with our Dragon Trigger. So we can use our 4th ability to gain some Aegis, or we can teleport out of the way to prevent damage. 1 attack and instantly killed. Oh, it was like 48,000 damage. Really, really strong Dragon Trigger skills. This spec is really good at burst potential, not necessarily prolonged damage. I think that really goes to the Virtuoso, but I'm gonna play a role that really capitalizes on exposed status effects, or when enemies have lots of vulnerability on them, or they're just ultimately in a weakened state. It is a really smart option to whip out the Bladesworn and start using your Dragon Trigger skills. Aside from the Dragon Trigger, Also, you got to see a little bit of that weapon swap trait with the extra damage. The pistol isn't too shabby either. You do get your 4th ability to give you some Aegis and also reload portions of your 5th ability. I will use this to gain an extra charge. I'm actually using combat stimulant as well. And then we instantly reload. The more bullets you have, the further back you go, which is also pretty cool. Gonna weapon swap also. Good thing to note is that when you happen to be in your first kit, like your sword, or you know, in this case, your axe and your offhand pistol, you can automatically press F2 to go straight into your dragon triggers, which would then activate your weapon swap trait. You can then weapon swap to come back out of it straight to the weapon that you are on, or press F1 to keep your gun saber out. Let me use my projectile here. It's got great range. So if you happen to be in a situation where someone is running away from you, be it in PvE or PvP, it's not too bad to take. Also, we can show the projectile destruction effect of this ability. If I can time it better, I can use it now. And yes, it will block some projectiles with your 4th cyclone trigger. And even a lot of them, if you happen to use it even more wisely in that situation. Let's fight this elite Canthan archer. You want to come here? Wha-bam! And also, with that trait, you can do decent breakbar damage as well. Once again, leaving them in a more vulnerable state. And because that exposed is about to leave, I will get one last strike on them, allowing the Bladesworn to capitalize on that exposed effect, because they actually recently changed and updated that exposed effect to last a bit longer. I'm gonna get a stim pack. I'm gonna use another one, because I have another one to kill. Honestly, the dragon spike mine is not my favorite. I honestly should be taking something else like kick, or, you know, even the electrical fence armament. There is something missing from the armaments, I believe, and ultimately, I think they really could have just been called gadgets, if we're being fully transparent. They essentially are engineered gadgets that are little tools that you get to use as a warrior. So I think the weakest aspect about the Bladesworn is probably their utility skills. Electric fence and also bulletproof barrier could have been one gadget. And I want to start saying gadget to hopefully allow them to change it, because they're not really armaments. They're very similar to gadgets. But I think that the projectile destruction and also the cripple effect could have been on the very same fence. Give it a 3rd charge perhaps, and then give them a completely new armament. It just needs something, and maybe a little something to complement the damage. Dragon Spike Mine does have damage, but it is conditional and very hard to hit. If an armament allowed you to deploy a gadget or a turret of some kind to shoot out a bunch of amber projectiles or amber missiles, I think that would be rather interesting. Oh my god, there's a champion Gaki here. Righty everyone, that was my Bladesworn build. It's very focused on damage. It's quite easy to pick up. I will say that I need to work on like swapping my weapons a little bit more, and maybe not taking Dragon Spike Mine. I really tried to play around with it earlier today and even for this video, but I think I have to be transparent and say it's not that great of a utility skill. Nevertheless, I'm having a lot of fun with Bladesworn. I think the one area that definitely needs work is the armaments, and that's really the only area that I would recommend to maybe take a second look at. I think the traits are pretty good, and I love the gun saber, and also the offhand pistol is a nice middle ground. Ultimately, if you are someone who doesn't really play warrior, I think Bladesworn is a nice elite spec to try. Warrior has never been my favorite, but it's so flavorful and specific that I found myself playing my warrior more than I used to. Thank you all so much for coming on by. Like the video if you liked it. Comment down below your thoughts about the Bladesworn. How do you feel about the armaments? I want to know what everyone else feels about them. If you want to support the channel, I have a Patreon where you can get early access to these build videos, you can get early access to other videos, exclusive content, and a special Discord channel. If you would like to order Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons, I have links down below, courtesy of ArenaNet. And if you are interested in some ExpressVPN, we have some links down below, which also help support the channel. Thank you all so very much, and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye, everybody. Mwah.